Democrats, they'll need a number of months of breathing space between being part of the coalition or the parliamentary arrangement with the Liberals and whenever the election takes place. So, I would expect that, the earliest now that we're probably looking at an election would be in the fall of 2024. And if that occurs, it will happen at the same time as the U.S. election, because that'll be very hot, the presidential election in September, October, going into a November vote. I'm sure the Liberals would probably like to see that happen so that, these two things happen at the same time. But I think right now we're probably looking at the earliest of a fall federal election.
All right, that was veteran Canadian pollster Nick Nano speaking with us earlier this week about the possibility of a Canadian federal election playing out this fall. And as he noted, if that happens, it would theoretically be running parallel to a presidential election in the United States, which got us ultimately thinking about what some of the key Washington stories to be watching in the markets through the year will be. Greg Valliere joins us on that topic. He is Chief U.S. Strategist with AGF Investments. Greg, it's nice to see you. First of all, just bring us up to speed on where things stand in the road towards the presidential election this fall.
Yeah, good to see you, John. I would make this assertion that if the election were tomorrow, Donald Trump would win. It would be close, but I look at the Electoral College map. I look at key voter groups, young people, African Americans, Hispanics. They've turned against Biden. So I'd say Biden, believe it or not, is the underdog right now. Now, we still have 8 months to go, and a lot can change. But as for right now, I think it's Trump's to lose.
What are the determining factors, topics, issues that are influencing where voters may be leaning right now?
Well, I would say if Joe Biden loses this election, I think historians will look back and say that immigration was the key issue. Biden did not appear to have a plan for the last couple of years. He thought he could sail through without any confrontation, and he got it wrong. Right before Christmas, John, we were averaging 10,000 illegal immigrants a day coming into Texas. You can't sustain that. We're probably going to wind up, the statistics will show, we had over 1 million illegal immigrants, maybe closer to 2 last year. So that's number one. Number two, obviously, is the economy, which I think is actually in pretty good shape. And number three, I'd say, is crime. In big U.S. cities, including where I live in Washington, crime is out of control.
And in terms of what we're going to be hearing from Joe Biden and Donald Trump, you talked about 3 areas there, but you highlighted the immigration story, and both made border city visits in Texas this week. I mean, were there any takeaways from the positioning of these respective individuals?
Well, Biden's giving it one more shot to see if he can get a deal through the Republicans in Congress. I think that's unlikely. I'm a cynic, John, and being a cynic, I think that the Republicans really are not in any great rush to get a bill. They would rather have the issue hang out there and help them. And less publicized, I'm not sure the Democrats are all that anxious to get a deal. They could get a lot of votes from Hispanic voters by portraying the Republicans as tone deaf and cruel and all of this stuff. So I'm not sure it's in either party's interest to get a final deal.
I've heard from some political circles in Canada that the possibility of a Canadian federal election this fall is in part because of the big American election. And I'm curious what you think about the idea of elections in other countries that might be playing off of what's happening stateside.
You just can't make this stuff up. It's so incredible, unprecedented. And yes, I do think that the U.S. election may come close to yours, maybe by a couple of months. And I would make this comment. I think that if Trump were to win, I think U.S.-Canadian relations could hit the rocks. I think there would be a lot of negatives. Things like Canada's contribution to NATO, which is a big issue for Trump. Things like electric vehicles, a composition of them, trade issues, a long list of disputes that I think would worsen if Trump were to win.
And we should remind our audience, because we've been talking about the life and legacy of Brian Mulroney and those early days of bringing together a North American free trade deal, which you and I have talked about over these last few years about getting back to the table on an updated deal. after all the turmoil that came from some of the commentary from Donald Trump about the relationship on the trade front. Now, on the economic story itself, you talked about the economy as one of the pillars to watch. You know, I think some people in the markets have been predicting more weakness on the economic front for a long time now, and you're seeing some of this resilience. So on political points on that front, if things don't break and we're not in a situation where, you know, inflation's out of control, interest rates maybe are still higher than some would like, but the economy's not in recession, who does that favor?
Good favor Joe Biden. I think the economy is in good shape. Inflation, as you know, is coming down. It's choppy, but it's coming down. Unemployment looks really solid. So, and the stock market obviously looks good. And we're still going to get Fed rate cuts. That's a nice combination. So I would say that Biden has two things going for him. One is a pretty good economy that may finally begin to convince Americans that it is good. And secondly, money. Underreported, but the amount of money raised by Joe Biden is stunning. On the other hand, Trump may have to take money from the Republican Party to pay for some of his legal bills. So I'd say if money is the mother's milk of politics, that's a big advantage for Joe Biden.
Finally, before I let you go, in every election cycle, as we get closer, everybody starts trying to sort of figure out what kinds of parts of the stock market might be impacted by what happens on election day, you know, certain sectors. Are you already thinking about that, how that all plays out?
Absolutely, John. I think that obviously industries that are heavily regulated would benefit if Trump won, energy, healthcare, things like that. But there's one surprise, in my opinion, and that would be defense. You would think the Republicans would spend a lot on defense. I'm not sure that Trump would. Trump is part of the new Republican ideology that's isolationist, that doesn't want to spend money on Ukraine or Israel, things like that. So I think, ironically, a Biden victory would be better for defense than a Trump victory.